Hey guys, I'm here to get into a very unique band, the Smashing Pumpkins. And, Billy Corgan certainly might have maybe almost like a final boss worthy rise and fall kind of in his impact in the world. Like, I think his ego is worse than Prince's. And I started learning more about Prince. I mean, I love Prince. I'm really embracing his height of the age. Man, his ego, I kind of take it in how he was in the 90s. I was, man, I like him. That's ego party. That's like the party man who's literally so comfortable and it's unlikable to be around. So Billy Corgan's even more like this, and perhaps the ultimate cautionary tale to a person like myself. So I come back to this band, and now I love them because they capture a perfect moment before it gets kind of worse out, and it's almost like you don't want to land in a certain wave. It's almost, you could say, too dominating, too much of that dominating energy, you could say, in a lot of ways. But still, like, I feel like this is kind of, we're taking the angst energy of grunge to better places. Maybe you could honestly say that the genre of grunge was intended for like a suicide-worthy death from the beginning. And perhaps Billy Corgan was interpreting all this as like, well, this is kind of why, because it turns out like that in the end. It's like you have a magic moment, and then that too much depression, too much, it makes you too angsty to really make anything that cares about anything else but your own head. So that happened to Prince. This is like the same fate after the 90s and Smashing Pumpkins. They were, I'm going to say, a genius band for Siamese Dream, and then a great band for Mellon, Collie, Adore, and Gish. But then not so great after that. But I think that what they laid out in their best moments is enough to call them like a favorite band of mine. I would say they're not like my absolute height of my list, but it's right in the middle there, because the impact is undeniable from the Smashing Pumpkins. I feel like I come back to a lot of this stuff, and it actually does hit me in a way that, okay, this is truly nice. And again, I think that's what I'm appreciating about the egomaniacs like Prince and then Billy Corgan here too. I think in the best moments, they're kind of portraying a sense of humor about themselves. Like, I feel like it's like that energy is terrible if there's not some humor behind it. Is kind of, I think, what it's kind of come down to. It's just, there is something toxic about that. But I mean, some of the best stuff is with the drummer Jimmy Chamberlain, who is just a genius drummer, I think, on this album. I think he really, and that's the thing, you're out for a genius sound. That's the ego, because it's just like out for something revolutionary, I think. And again, that's just, I think I'm on the end of, I'm drained of I'm not trying to start a revolution whatsoever. I'm just doing it to be happy. So, that's the difference. So this is out for a revolution. I think there's like a cautionary tale to follow about the Smashing Pumpkins. So I think it's really a fascinating band that ultimately does land as a favorite for their undeniable impact and just of storytelling that they laid on me, and by way of music. I mean, some of these melodies and the spirit and feeling of this band is quite timeless. I mean, it was certainly taking in all the influence of like My Bloody Bands, like My Bloody Valentine. I mean, and then a lot of bands like Nirvana. I mean, and like Soundgarden. Like taking in almost, this is like a 90s, basically the 90s end of psychedelia. And a lot of this just was in a lot darker place in a lot of ways. And I think sometimes that darkness can just be intense. This is quite, I mean, the first album, Gish, came out in 1991. I mean, yeah, it's a pretty great album. It's definitely far from one of the best albums that come out of the 90s overall. But I mean, it does lay out a feeling that's definitely very much like 90s kids listening to a lot of psychedelic rock, and this kind of just feels like it needed to take in Loveless before it could get to genius territory. But I mean, some of these songs really do have their moments. This album does kind of have its special moments, and I think that's the feeling that all these bands are kind of after. It's just like nothing too egomaniac. That's the original part about it too. Like it's a lot more laid back here. It's more laid back than it's ever been before. I think Siamese Dream made a mini egomaniac, and then he made a double album reflecting that. And the door just got darker, and then he's just too much. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, it would get even better, like, in the times to come. It's still, it kind of has, like, just this feeling of just going up a mountain. And you have that anticipation before getting to the mountain, and then maybe hiking up to the top of the mountain. So that's the thing. That's the metaphor I'm perceiving all this band, films, directors, and everything. It's like literally every person has their own unique perspective of going on a hike on a mountain. Like, I want to listen to everyone's perspective. And yeah, that's how you can find your own perspective in a lot of ways. And then, like the perfect balance of, I think, refined ego is found in all this. And sometimes the over-the-top egomaniacs do lay it out the best. Like, where it's like the appeal of it while there's a cautionary living inside all this too. Like, again, this Prince mood is sort of doing this to me in a lot of ways too. Yeah. I mean, Smashing Pumpkins is kind of a band that kind of wakes this up for me also. It's a new place for me to like kind of talk about socially. So it's different. Just what it is to be in that interesting ego place. And Billy Corgan certainly was over the top. with his ego. You can kind of hear a lot of great, interesting melodies in all these songs. Songs like Siva are fantastic rockers. Like, it really does kind of feel like it just feels like it's bringing back something of a 60s spirit. That's what I think the band was going for with this album, literally. But I think Loveless did a superior job of this, so they would kind of catch up to that with Siamese Dream. Like an equally perfect album for you guys in time. So we're going to literally, I think, the best to an American feeling that is very honest and timeless, ultimately. But I think this album is, free of ego, and it's just a good listen. I think there's like great moments overall. Like I'm definitely a little tired of it by the end. Like you can feel the drain in of all that 60s in this album. Loading did it too, because that's building up to the masterpiece album, Siamese Dream in 1993. This is coming back to me as like, okay, I think I came to this album in very particular moods. Growing up, I was obsessed with this album growing up. I literally was. I would play all these songs on guitar and bass obsessively, and that's the thing. I think that's what's coming back to me. I think they might be my cold side represented in the band, basically. I gotta be honest about the fact that this is all kind of cold. Siamese Dream's a cold album, but it's set out to make something as revolutionary and perfect as all the best bands were doing. I don't even need to say the names because I've said it so much. But, all the best of the 60s, basically. That's what was going on in the early 90s. But they got to the point of like death, and the point is like this stuff was never meant to be taken too seriously, although it's meant to be interpreted a certain kind of way. But I think that it was meant to be fun and light ultimately. So the 90s kind of brought a lot of this dream to a tragic end by just literally bringing suicide to the table, just because it's literally a game that's taken way too far. Like you're treating it as serious. This is sort of like an awkward revelation. Like I'm treating it as serious as I'm in the army. So I'm like, but this is kind of a great album representing, I think, an actual genius foundation, because it's like, okay, but inside a lot of this revolutionary instinct there is genius, but it's like, look at that from a very glass-eyed lens perspective instead of taking action on this. Songs like Cherub Rock, sometimes I would grow up and always just want to get on the drums and just play every single one of these songs, and that's like ego being too loud. It's dominating. Maybe other band members wanted to focus. That's me growing up, though. Nowadays it's like, I take it way too serious now. Again, like Billy Corgan. So that's why I'm not too loud about it. I think I do. Something of a Billy Corgan does kind of come out here, where like, and I'm a little intimidated to say that, but it's kind of like that's the side. It's nasty and kind of ugly of man ultimately. But in this album, he holds it quite well. He just sounds like an angel who's kind of at a troubled place, but ultimately he shines just as well as. Just like in the album, Love Is My Boy Valentine really comes to mind. This is just more human and more of like a tragic man kind of, living here, as opposed to Loveless. It's almost just like a better place to be at. But yeah, this album always comes back to me. Like the thing is, I think I often want to deny my love for this band these days, but I think it always comes back to me as just like this is the truest American perhaps band like in the modern days, 90s. I think they really do define a feeling that really does hit right at home, in a certain sort of sense in this album. Like songs like Hummer perfectly represent this feeling. This is just different. And it's an unexplainable feeling that they're going for. That's like all I think best grunge music is. It's just like it's going for like expressing transcendence to society basically. But I think they're on the idea that it's always a failure. You never will communicate effectively to the point where you'll be satisfied and fulfilled. But I think that Billy Corgan had his ego a little more straight. And because he went so mad, he kind of displays a moment where it's like, oh man, he was almost so good at this time that it kind of blew up later for himself. And that's the thing. I can sympathize with Billy Corgan's personality a lot on this album. Like the other stuff he did, because it certainly sounds like a man who's just, really, it's just about the biggest. He feels like the biggest thing in the world to say. And that's the way a lot of creators felt in the 90s. It's like getting on the platform to say the biggest thing in the world and just going bananas. It's like it is almost a psychedelic feeling, but it's different all the same. It's almost more of just kind of like having the ego out and just being able to just go crazy with your platform. And I think there's been a lot more of a refined take in the 2000s. I really do relate to all these decades at the end, even the refined part. I study it, but ultimately the 90s really expressed something here. And all these lyrics here are just very off kilter. The vocals are perfect. Songs like Disarm. The guitar work is so good here. All the lyrics here are just really heavy. And that's the thing. Amazing guitar work is this one. Just like with Prince. I'm just like, okay, they're like literally they played so much Jimi Hendrix that they became as good as Jimi Hendrix and did their own language entirely. That's alternative rock in a nutshell. Songs like Geek USA is perfect because it just literally feels like it's the perfect kind of grunge rock feeling that just kind of lays out something that sounds like lightning, particularly in Lava as being kind of like I guess the album sounds like a lava lamp. This is ultimately the best album I've ever heard expressing the flavor. We're staring into a lava while listening to an album, which is often I do that when I pick up my records. So yeah, songs like Hummer and Quiet are just fascinating in their guitarists, and they're so compelling and unique. Songs like Disarm. And today just really plays something that really perfectly captures what the alternative rock feeling is of loud, balance of loud and quiet. Cherub Rock is just, man, I mean, that song's perfect in the way that it just takes so much shoegaze influence and just kind of does its own thing entirely. Songs like Rocket are just so shoegazy. Yeah, it's amazing. But, it's just, this is one of those albums. Songs like Luna, I really love that one too. There's some sitar going into it also, so that's really cool. One of the best songs in Mayonnaise. I mean, that's perfect. I mean, that was my favorite song of all time at one point growing up. And it still kind of holds a very special place. It just, I guess, just like kind of calm and losing something, you could say. And it just sounds so perfect. It's expressions. And I love Mayonnaise so much. I love all these songs so much. Rockets just sounds like the revolution is happening in the Smashing Pumpkins way. I love that song so much. And then, yeah, you got like a kind of a B-side to the album as well that was released in 1994 called Pisces Iscariot. Riot. I mispronounced that. My bad. Icus Riot. But yeah, this is an album that's very original in a way that it's just taking all these outtakes and just kind of playing on to the heaviest side of Shades of Siamese Dream, and just kind of like an expansion pack of a lot of that. And it's not on the same level exactly, but it is certainly on an equally beautiful level, I would say. I mean, it's really original. So I definitely recommend listening to all of it too. I think it's like I don't sit down and even remember a lot of the particular song names. I just remember the impact certainly hits me in a way that's just original. Just this is good stuff right here. I think that Mellon called the Infinite Sadness in 1995 is just massive, and it's certainly one of the most flawed double albums. But it's much better than an album by The Wall by Pink Floyd, which I love Pink Floyd so much. I'm going to talk about Pink Floyd here soon. I think right now, Melancholy. That's another story of an ego gone mad. This is a very kind of similar story that Stinger happened to Billy Corgan, where it's just like literally too much. So a few of these songs are kind of horrible about its expression because it's too whiny. I think that's what happens when you get to this place. Even with Roger Waters, it gets too whiny, you could say. That's what I don't like. So you could feel that way and not whine. I think that Billy Corgan was kind of hinting at his foreshadowing a lot of the 2000s hours, and he became whiny. So I think songs like are perfect, like Tonight by Starlight. I love all these songs. In the sense of just calm and go to all these songs and melodies. Songs like Bullet with Butterfly Wings are just perfect. It's just got a big rage on the inside of it. I mean, it's one of the best alternative rock albums ever made. It feels like Billy Corgan's just really a master at writing, like just the lyrics in the best moments of this album too. So they certainly feel nostalgic for a certain place. Songs like To Forgive, it just feels like it's just very original. He's definitely kind of an awkward singer in this album in a lot of ways too. I kind of like that. Like, it doesn't always feel like it's. I mean, this is way different than bands like REM. I think do this way better now. But I think that this album is certainly equally good in a lot of ways. It may be capturing what that spirit feels like in the later 90s. It's a lot darker. I mean, you can tell this is like a last moment before it's ugly forever kind of feeling. I mean, if members were our family like hating each other, there's a lot of awkward energy going on. Basically, the Smashing Pumpkins are the ultimate strange family, you could say. And Billy Corgan definitely has a funny man. Like, I mean, he had a sense of humor throughout. That's what kind of makes it work in a lot of ways. Like losing innocence completely in acting is just crazy, basically. And he kind of captures this in the most maddening kind of way. So much guitar work going on here. I absolutely love it. It's absolutely perfect. Yeah, all these songs kind of feature just this man who's gone overboard insane, basically. I mean, it's quite beautiful. I mean, it's hard to even talk about like every single song and stuff, but it's a very overwhelming feeling. I get an overwhelming feeling when I listen to this album. I think it's a little bit of a tragic in a sense. So it's like, man, I need to sit down and listen to this deeper. So I need to take it. There's a lot of genius stuff about the Smashing Pumpkins out, actually. Like, I think they really are similar to all the grunge music and a similar sense of adventurism, but it's like the survivor who ultimately did become sort of a corrupted acting dude, because it's just too far, in that sense. And I can, to be able to relate to a few of those shades is just haunting. So it's like, and to listen to it, you're not in the same kind of quality. It's like, it's just like if you feel like you have that much superiority, you want to at least keep the quality good for the world. That's the feeling that kind of has that kicks in. That's the cautionary tale that kind of kicks it about the band. Then you have the album Adored in 1998. And that one really wasn't a hit at all. That one flopped pretty hard. But I mean, all these songs are just at their all-time best, honestly. I remember hearing this. I think this is the first time I ever heard of Smashing Pumpkins. I was very young when I heard Chase this album. It was just like, I thought they were like just the weirdest alien band ever. So like, it was just all this electronic energy going into it. Just like, I didn't really know what to make of all this. But now I kind of like some of this stuff. It does kind of have a late 90s feeling to it that I do enjoy. I mean, I think hip-hop's the best shade of the 90s, I think, now. I mean, hip-hop's growing me as it's too good for me, because I believe that it's wiser than me and its perspective of love in a lot of ways. So I need to take it in better. And then, be wisen up. It's just like the final boss of music being expressed, being the face of death with all your delusions, you could say, is being assessed in a certain kind of way. But Smashing Pumpkins, on the other end, it's just, it's a little tired at this point, and I feel like it goes and it falls into angst territory from here. That's where it gets crazy. Like, I mean, really bad angst. That's what I fear the most. Because everybody has an angst in it, and it's like you always want to kind of be able to say it in a way that just isn't too overbearing for the world, And I mean, I know like you have to kind of work through all of that, but it's crazy. So albums like Machina in 2000, it's just like, I don't like that one. It's really bad. I don't know what to say. It's just really, really boring. It feels like it's the feeling I fear is just like it's an album that feels like it's just literally appealing to just a very, very young age demographic. Let's just say that I'm not feeling that energy in my own way. Like it's a little bit weird. It just doesn't sound that great to me. He's literally just playing like high school people like, in this band instead of like his original ones. I think he kicked them all out for just whatever reason. I don't understand it. That's the idea. You don't know what happens. It just went mad. There's albums like Zeltaggeist in 2007. That just disturbs it. I hate. No, that's too ugly. I don't like that album. Shiny and said right 2008, 18. Yeah, you could just tell it's just really tired. But at the same time, you can tell the depressed end is really coming out of this man. And Corgan's really different. He's really acting like a bit of a bitter ass here. Let's just say that, just to be frank in this album. It just feels depressing because it's like it's almost like that's what is about revolutionary instincts. It becomes depressing when you're just like loudly just desperate to bring it back, but it's just but there's like a failure to acknowledge that it's failing to land in a certain kind of way. So Billy Corgan just kind of sounds like a bit of like a self-maniac, he's like a safe-control maniac, just mean to everybody basically, but no one wanted to work with him. Like, I mean, the best genius drummer of all time in alternative rock, Jimmy Chamberlain, left. And, I mean, everyone. I don't know why. That's the mystique. Like, this is like the ultimate family that went mad. He just brought in just like the most random high schoolers in this band just to kind of continue this. And it just doesn't really sound that great at all. So they're certainly geniuses of alternative rock in the end, though. I think for what they did in the 90s, it's great enough to hail them as a favorite, but they were very, very close. They're annoying to perceive after that. In the 2000s and 2010s, it's a big cautionary tale in a lot of ways of that overblown ego, which I'm admitting to guilty. I'm guilty of a lot of that. So that's why I take my time with making this film too. Sort of, and I guess I'm flushing it all out in a certain sort of way, so I think the goal after I make this project is to see past all of that. That's sort of what my end goal is. My certain way of endless fulfillment for myself. That's sort of been the goal this whole way. I say, by the time I finish making the film Palsy, it'll be a feeling of ultimate fulfillment. And I think that a lot of that comes through understanding a lot of this, interpreting a lot of this stuff a certain way. That's where I could get to it. Kind of way of making this film. And I realize I love doing this stuff almost even more. It almost satisfies my ego even more than actually going out and making the film. That can be a weird, awkward place to be in a certain kind of way. So it's a certain place of love. I need to be slightly more healthy in way of fulfillment. And I think it's easily going to come with it. So I'm 100% confident in that. But right now, it's just like, wow, perceiving guys like Billy Corgan really lay it out smoothly for all this really, really well. It's like almost an overconsumption of a lot of the evil side of psychedelia in the 60s, as opposed to the great side, you could say. It's just because that lives, in a lot of modern American culture. So it's really important to perceive a lot of this and the impact it's kind of laying out. And that can be it. The over the top sense of revolution. I have that living inside of my heart, so it's a little intimidating. So it's like literally chill. I think that's a good message. Siamese Dream is perfect. It's like, and I think that's the reason why, because it's so tragic to hear something that's so perfect kind of come to that. Because if it's something that perfect, you almost want it to consistently feel on that level of, okay, that still as nice as I felt back then, kind of thing. But Yes, that's I recommend their 90s stuff to anybody, honestly. It's quite amazing what they did. It's different from grunge because it's more of a survival instinct living to it. It feels like they're alive and a little more happy with their lives. So I kind of enjoy in the moment, you could say. It's just in the moment happy, not all the time happy. I mean, they're certainly depressed in real life, but they bring happiness in their music together. So it's a very original sort of foundation they lay out. Yeah, I dig Smashing Pumpkins. They're really great for alternative rock. I highly recommend them.